Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. This is Angel. Then I'm going to tackle about the biological cycle. So first, let's take a look how the process of the nitrogen cycle. Uh, let's find out the definition first. The nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen cycle is the biogeochemical process which transform the inert nitrogen present in the atmosphere to the more usable form for living organism. So what is nitrogen cycle? So nitrogen cycle is a biochemical process through which is the nitrogen is converted into many forms consecutively passing from the atmosphere to the soil to organism and back into the atmosphere. Okay, so nitrogen, so the symbol of the nitrogen is the letter N, and then the atomic number is 7. Then the atomic weight is the 14.00667. Then the gas is the colorless, and then the odorless, and the general inert. So the liquid is the colorless, and then the odorless. Okay, so a gas that made up 79% of the gases in the atmosphere. It is also compounds or the vital components of foods, fertilizer, and explosive, and it is also the organism use nitrogen to build proteins and nucleic acid. So these are the cycle consists of the following step. So the first one is the nitrogen fixation. The second one is the nitrogen assimilation. Then the third one is the ammonification, the nitrification, and the denitrification, and then the sedimentation. So as you can see in the picture shown below, so the nitrogen fixation is the initial of state nitrogen cycle, and then here at that atmosphere is the N2, which is primarily available in an inert form, and then it is converted to the usable from ammonia, which is the NH3, and then during the process of of nitrogen fixation. So the inert form of nitrogen gas is deposited into the soils, and then from the atmosphere and the surface water, mainly through the precipitation. So then the next one is the assimilation. It is a primarily produced of producer plants take in the nitrogen compounds from the soil with the help of the roots, which are the available in the form of ammonia, and then nitrate ions, and then the nitrate ions or the ammonium ions, and are used in the formation of the plants and animal proteins. So this way it enters the food when the primarily consumers ate the plants. And then the next one is the ammonification. So the ammonification, when the plants or the animals die, the nitrogen present in the organic matter is released back into the soil. Sumabalik na siya sa soil. So the decomposer, namely bacteria of fungi, present in the soil convert in the organic matters back, then which is the further use for other biological process, which is the ammonia. And then the next one is the nitrification process. So in this process, the ammonia is converted into the nitrate by the presence of bacteria in the soil. So the nitrates are formed by the oxidation of ammonia, and then with the help of the nitrosomonas bacterium species. Later on, it is produced the nitrates, and are converted into the nitrates by the nitrobacteria. So this conversation is very important as ammonia gas is toxic for plants. So the next one process is the denitrification. So it is the process in which the nitrogen compounds makes their way back into the atmosphere by converting nitrate, which is the NO3, into gaseous, which is the nitrogen. And then this process of the nitrogen cycle is the final stage and occurs in the absence of oxygen. And then the denitrification is carried out by the denitrifying bacterial species, which is the Clostridium and the Pseudomonas, which will process nitrate to gain oxygen and gives out free nitrogen gas as a byproduct. Okay, so now let's take a look the nitrogen fixation. So this is the first stage of the nitrogen as what I said earlier. So this reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme nitrogenase, which is produced by nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil. So Azotobacter is found living freely in the soil, while Rhizobium forms a mutualistic association with the roots of legumes. So Rhizobium forms nodules within the plant's roots. So makita siya sa kanang gamot sa kanang tanom, and supplies ammonia to the plants in exchange for carbohydrates. So ammonia, which is the NH3, becomes ammonium. Kung ang ammonia nahimo siya nga ammonium, which is NH4 plus, then when mixed with water, and this can be used by plants. So as you can see, so the inert nitrogen gas, which is the atmosphere, then it would become the bacteria in the soil and the roots, and then it would become mahimo siya nga ammonia, which is the NH4. Okay, so now let's proceed for the ammonification. So ammonia can also be produced from organic sources of nitrogen, which is amino acid, when broken down by decomposers. So as a plant or animal decays, some saprotrophs will decompose organic materials to produce ammonia and ammonium ions. So this process is known as ammonification and release ammonium ions into the soil, which can be absorbed by plants. So as you can see in the picture shown below, so this is the plants, and then the animals. When so kung what I mean, kung the decomposition will go to the soil, nga mahimo siya nga bacteria, and then which is to be called the ammonification. Okay, so now the nitrification. So nitrification is the conversion of ammonium ions into the nitrates, which is the NO2, and then the nitrates NO3 by nitrifying bacteria in the soil. So Nitrosomonas converts ammonium ions into the nitrates, as what I said a while ago. Then while Nitrobacter can convert the nitrates into the nitrates. So this reaction requires oxygen, and hence soil must be well aerated to ensure a rich supply of nitrates and nitrates. So nitrates and nitrates are easier for plants to assimilate, and hence function as a predominant source of nitrogen for plants. Okay, so let's proceed for the denitrification. So denitrification is a chemical reduction process that converts nitrates, which is the NO3, so into the nitrogen gas, which is the N2, and then it is carried out by denitrifying bacteria, which is the Pseudomonas and the Pseudomonas denitrificans, in the absence of oxygens, which is the anoxic condition. So nitrates can be used instead of oxygen as an electron acceptor during cellular respiration for producing nitrogen gas. So this will only occur in oxygen-poor conditions such as the waterlogged soils, and reduce the ability of nitrates to plants. So this is the nitrification, which is the NO2, and then the nitrates, which is the NO3, then coming from the soil and then to the atmosphere, which is the inert nitrogen gas. Okay, so now let's proceed to the importance of nitrogen cycle. So the importance of the nitrogen cycle are follows. So these are, so the first one, it helps plants to synthesize chlorophyll 2 from the nitrogen compounds. So it is also help with converting inert nitrogen gas into a usable form for the plants through the biochemical process. And then the last one is the process of the ammonification. The bacteria help in decomposing the animal and plant matter, so which indirectly helps to clean up the environment. So ang bacteria po di ay makatabang siya sa pag-decompose sa kanang nga matay nga mga animals and plants nga makadirekta siya pagtabang to clean up the environment in our environment. Okay, so the next one is nitrates and nitrates are released into the soil which help enriching the soil with the necessary nutrients required for cultivation. And then the next one is the nitrogen is an integral component of the cell and it forms many crucial compounds and important biomolecules. Okay, so now let's proceed for the phosphorus cycle. Okay, so what is phosphorus? So phosphorus from the name of the symbol is the letter P. Okay, so phosphorus is a nutrient that is vital to human, animal, and plant growth. So it is also one of the most common substance found in the nature. So makita na siya sa nature. So it founds in our water, our food, and our body. So meaning to say makita na siya nato sa water, sa atong pagkaon, ug sa atong lawas. So okay, the phosphorus, which is the atomic number, is 15, and then the atomic mass, which is the 30.97. Okay, so now let's proceed for the next slide. So where does it come from? So asa nagikan ang phosphorus? Okay, so phosphorus occurs naturally at low levels in water and plants and animals. So phosphorus occurs naturally in fertilizer used in agriculture. So, gigamit ini siya sa mga agriculture. Cleaners used in industry and wastewater from the household sewage. Okay, so phosphorus is also found in water, solid, which is the detritus and the bodies of the biological organism. Okay, so now let's find out the definition of the phosphorus cycle. So phosphorus cycle is the biochemical process that involves the movement of the phosphorus through the lithosphere. Okay, so the hydrosphere and then the biosphere. Okay, so what is phosphorus? What is phosphorus cycle? So phosphorus is an important element for our living organism. It has also forms a significant part of the structural framework, which is the DNA and the RNA. Then they are also an important component of ATP. Humans contains 80% of phosphorus in teeth and bones. So, anha di ay makita ang phosphorus sa body sa tao, which is naa sa ngipon o sa atong mga kabukugan. Okay, so these are the state of the phosphorus cycle. So the following are the important steps of the phosphorus cycle. So the first one is the weathering. So okay, the weathering, the absorption by plants and animals, and then the return to the environment through the decomposition. Okay, so the first step is the weathering. So the weathering, since the main source of phosphorus is found in the rocks, then the first step of the phosphorus cycle involves the extraction of phosphorus from the rocks by weathering. Weather events such as rain and other sources of erosion result in the phosphorus it being washed into the soil. And then the next one is the absorption by plants and animals. So which once in the soil, plants and fungi and microorganisms are able to absorb the phosphorus and grow. In addition, phosphorus can also be washed into the local water system. So plants can also directly absorb phosphorus from the water and grow. And then in addition to plants and animals also obtain phosphorus from drinking water and eating plants. Okay, so the next one is the return to environment through decomposition. So when plants and animals die, decomposition result in the return of phosphorus back to the environment via the water or soil. So ang kadadaing plants nga mahimong mamatay din ma-decomposition. Result day ana is mahimo siyang phosphorus back to the environment nga makita siya sa tubig ug sa soil. So plants and animals in this environment can be used this phosphorus. And then the steps 2 of the cycle is repeated, which is katong the absorption of plants and animals. Okay, so now this is the human impact of phosphorus. Okay, so a number of human activities is use of fertilizers, artificial eutrophication, etc. has a great impact on the phosphorus cycle. So the phosphorus fertilizer increase the level of phosphorus in the soil. Overuse of this fertilizer reduce the fertility of the soil. So kung masobraan ang paggamit sa fertilizer, maka-reduce siya sa fertility sa soil, and it's also harmful to the microorganism present in the soil. So maka-harm siya sa kanang mga microorganism nga naa sa yuta. When these are washed away into the nearby water bodies, they are hazardous to the aquatic life. So dapat siya hazard. Okay, so now let's proceed to the importance of phosphorus cycle. So the importance of phosphorus cycle. So phosphorus is an essential nutrient plants and animals. It is also a part of DNA molecules, which is the RNA molecules that store energy, which is the ATP and the ADP. Okay, the phosphorus is also building block of the certain parts of the human and animal bodies, such as the bones and teeth nga makita naa sa tong lawas. Okay, so now let's proceed to the water cycle. So now let's find out the processes of the water cycle. So from the sky to earth, water moves from the atmosphere in the sky down to the earth and back up to the atmosphere again. So it is an endless cycle of up and down. So gikan sa babaw padulong sa ubos, higupo na sad siya padulong sa babaw ug padulong na sad sa ubos. So endless cycle, walang katapusan na proseso. Okay, so water is changing. So remember that water is always moving on above and below the earth, and as it travels its state, it also can turn from liquid to solid to a gas. So this process of moving and changing is called the water cycle. Okay, so the water cycle is the process of how water circulates around the earth. Okay, so the water cycle, so these are the 4 stages in the water cycle are. So the first one is the evaporation, the second one is the condensation, the precipitation, and then the collection. So, okay, so now, as you can see in the picture shown below, so evaporation is, this is the initial stage of the water cycle, and then the process by which water from its liquid state changes to the vapor, a gaseous state, is termed as an evaporation. Okay, so during the water cycle, water in the water bodies get heated up, and then it evaporates in the form of vapor. So mix with air and disappear. Okay, so the next one is the condensation. So when the evaporated water vapor loses its thermal energy, it becomes liquid through the process of condensation. So the formation of clouds are the example of condition. So kanading mga panganod nga nasa langit, mao na siya example sa condensation. Okay, so the next one is the precipitation. Okay, so the precipitation. So the rain, the snow, and the sleet, and the hail. So these are the example of the precipitation. So after the condensation, the atmosphere water vapor forms sufficiently large water droplets and falls back to the earth with the help of gravity. So kung mapuno na din ang panganod, kanang mubalik ra siya sa ubos, which is the rain, and then the snow, the sleet, and the hail. Okay, the next one is the deposition. So this is the final stage of water cycle. So deposition occurs when the evaporated water water vapor falls back to the earth as the precipitation, and then this water may fall back may fall back into the different water bodies, including the ocean, rivers, ponds, lakes, and even end up to the land, which is torn becomes part of the groundwater. Okay, so now let's take a look, which is okay. So as you can see in the picture shown below, so this is the stage 1, which is the evaporation. So evaporation occurs when the sun heats up water in the rivers or lakes or the ocean and turns it into vapor or steam. The water vapor or the steam leaves the river, the lake, or the ocean, goes into the air. So higupon siya sa kanang sun, ang air, so padulong sa sun. Okay. So now let's proceed to the stage 2, which is the condensation. Okay, so the condensation occurs when the water vapor or the steam in the air gets cold and changed from a gas back into liquid, forming a cloud. So mao day na siya ang hinungdan nga mahimong nga clouds. Okay, so the stage 3, which is the precipitation. Okay, the precipitation occurs when so much water has condensed that the clouds get heavy and water falls back to the earth in the form of rain, hail, sleet, or snow. So, like what I said before, inikapunuan ng panganod, mobalik ra siya sa ubos, which is kanang ang rain, ang snow, ug ang sleet. So, that's it. And then the stage 4, which is the collection. So this is when the water that falls from the clouds as the rain, snow, hail, or sleet, it collects the ocean. So rivers, lakes, streams, most will soak into the ground and will collect the underground water. So mo na siya. Kumbaga balik-balik ra iyang cycle di ay. So and overall the water cycle process describe how water is balanced in the atmosphere. It is also plays an important role in ensuring the availability of water for living organism, and also it has a great impact on our environment. So again, all the process, it all begins again. So and once the precipitation falls, the cycle starts all over again. So balik-balik ra yang cycle. Okay, so why is the water cycle is so important? So first, 75% of the earth is covered with water, and the 97.5% is the salt water. Mao na ang dagat kanang nakapalibot sa tuwa. So meaning to see, ang earth na to gipalibutan siya og tubig. But ang pinakakuan kayo kay kanang dagat, lake, mo nay pinakadako kay percent, which is gamay ra ang the fresh water is only 3 3% something. Okay, the majority of fresh water is beyond our reach, frozen into the glaciers and polar caps. And then the water cycle is natural circulation of water on earth, the constant circulation of water between the land, the air, and the sea. Okay, so now let's proceed for the sulfur cycle. Okay, so what is sulfur? So the atomic number of the sulfur is 16, and then the symbol of the sulfur, which is the S. Okay, so the native form is a yellow crystalline, which is the crystal-like solid. In the nature, it can be found as the pure element and as sulfide and sulfate minerals. And then for the commercial uses, it could be the fertilizers, gunpowder, matches, insecticides and fungicides, vitamins, proteins, and hormones. So, mao na ang iyang gamit for commercial uses. Okay, it is critical in the environment, climate, and health of the ecosystem. Random facts. It can also be referred as a brimstone. It is also the 10th most abundant element in the universe. So, ika na po siya sa pinaka-abundant nga naay element sa universe. Okay, so where is sulfur found? So the majority of Earth's sulfur is stored in the rocks and underground. So in sulfur salt at the bottom of the ocean. Okay, so now what is sulfur cycle? So sulfur is one of the most abundant element on the earth. It is a yellow, brittle, tasteless, odorless, and non-metal. So sulfur is present in all kinds of proteins. Plants directly absorb sulfur-containing amino acids such as methionine, cysteine, cysteine, and the cysteine. Okay, so now let's proceed to the next slide. So these are the steps of the sulfur cycle. Okay, so the decomposition of the organic compounds, the oxidation of elemental sulfur, the oxidation of hydrogen sulfate into elemental sulfur, and then the reduction of sulfates in the atmosphere, and the biosphere, and then the plants, and then the animals' uptake, and then the last one is the lithification and release. Okay, so sulfur cycle example. So these are the cycle example: the atmosphere and the biosphere. So the atmosphere is one of the receivers of sulfur, where the sulfur is found in the form of sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfate. And then for the biosphere is composed of living organism that includes plants, animals, and then the microorganism. Out of this, microorganisms play an important role in the sulfur cycle. Okay, so sulfur cycle significance. So sulfur is an essential element that is an important component of biomolecules like proteins and nucleic acids. So the understanding of the sulfur cycle enables the understanding of the biomolecules under function. So the sulfur cycle is essential as it balances the concentration of sulfur and different receivers so as it make the earth has a hospitable place for life. And then the sulfur is found in the nature is in combined state with other elements like nitrogen, iron, and phosphorus. So the sulfur cycle also affect the availability of other elements. So makaapekto po siya sa ability sa ubang elements. Okay, so now let's proceed for the importance of the sulfur. Okay, so sulfur cycle is an important element of industrial process. And sulfur dioxide, which the SO2 is used as a bleaching agent and it's used to bleach wood pulp. Okay, so sulfur dioxide used in preservation to kill molds and bacteria. So gigamit po dahil siya sa mga pag-preserve o pagpatay sa kanang mga molds o bacteria. Sulfur is found in every living cell, which is the amino acid. So that would be all. Thank you so much for watching and listening.